pension or anything for it, right? So that's pretty common. But the persistence. Anything else? Um, the name was Fighting for Freedom, the little known story of Muslims in the Civil War.
It's a lot to it's a lot to take in. You know, we traditionally think that the Civil War was mostly like white on white,
Mm-hmm.
and then you had Negro soldiers that fought for the Union Army,
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo soldiers, so to speak.
And we also don't often hear about other countries, speaking up and trying to
Right.
persuade.
That was interesting. To have somebody send a letter
Mm-hmm.
to America saying, talking about that they should eradicate slavery as well.
Yeah, and I also know that there are others that have done some of the same, and even some that have sent people to the Americas to fight for the eradication. Um, so we see how all throughout life history repeats itself. Somebody's going to be oppressed in some point of time, and those who are honored in history, those who are idolized going forward, are those who fight against the oppression, who stand up against it, who do something. Yes, Brother Maurice?
Yeah, those are the ones we know about, but there's so many more
Yeah.
that we don't even know about.
Yeah. And we'll know on a day of judgment, inshallah. But it's not staying within that bubble to feel as though you're on your own, right? That everybody has something to contribute to this goal at hand. They talked about how the Ottoman Empire ended slavery in the region as it spread throughout the Middle East known today, and the Roman Empire are taking and consuming most of the Roman Empire. And it eliminated slavery based on Islamic principles, right, and holding that standard. You see how when people who are not consumed with power, consumed with holding this standard of empire, you see truth kind of flourish in these settings. And when truth is able to flourish, then nothing is impeding it, nothing is stopping it. We can liken it to when slavery, after slavery is abolished, and how in Wilmington, North Carolina, there was this sense of equity and equality, where there was black representation in politics, where 51% or 56 or so percent of the community were African Americans. And so they saw black businesses and equal representation, and whites and blacks were together doing a thing. Even Charlotte had something like that, or was like that before in the late 1800s. Charlotte, before Brooklyn Village, was just black. You can see a map, and you can see black villages are the black businesses and black houses right next to white and minority owned things as well, immigrant owned things. Everything was mixed. But then you get arrogance, and you get pride, and you get propaganda, and then things become completely separated. And so you see a complete shift in where everything was mixed before, and now the Charlotte Observer comes out with things, propaganda starts to spread, and the Ku Klux Klan starts to get involved, and now you see a direct split, right? You see people taking over people's businesses, pushing them out. Now you get Brooklyn Village, all right? Now you get the massacres in Wilmington, where they led a coup, essentially. and murdered people because they didn't want to be ruled by African Americans, or they didn't want to be ruled by people who weren't like them or didn't look like them or uphold what they wanted to uphold or held them accountable or whatever have you. You see how they flourish when they're not impeded against, and then you see how when they are, when somebody corrupt gets into power, how they keep people down. They keep people from advancing and from cultivating and from rising up again. It's the same with the Muslim world. The same in the Middle East. Like these countries, they're divided. It's intentional. The Ottomans ended in 1920s, and they didn't want nobody wanted that again. That for the powers that be is not you're not able to globally take over the world if you have countries and nations coming together and being formidable fighters against you, right? Rather, it's more applicable if you can, indoctrinate yourselves in these different places around the world, make yourself an imperial power, colonialize, right? Put the 51st state of America in the middle of the Middle East, and and act as though you're not oppressing. But Allah Subhanahu wa Taala tells us in the Quran that. In Al-Baqarah, the 11th verse says, and when it is said to them, "Do not cause corruption on the earth," they say, "We are but reformers." And then he says, "Unquestionably, it is they who are the corrupters, but they perceive it not." Right? So, timeless.
Timeless verse.
It's timeless because history repeats itself. And if we don't learn from our history, then we'll fall victim to that repetition in some way, form, or fashion. Either we'll be conforming with and affirming the oppression, or we'll become the oppressed. Right? And we see that as society gets more polarized, as society gets more shameless, right? It's just rampant. It's just rampant. It's wild. It's getting bad. It's getting worse. But as Muslims, we have the blueprint. As Muslims, we have the medicine that is needed in society. We have to take a vested interest in fixing ourselves so that we can fix what's around us, right? I talked about in the Jummah how the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, started off as an individual that was good and just and known as the trustworthy one of his people, right? And then he became a family man, taking over the business of Khadija, being able to fix those flaws in the business. Like Khadija, she had a business, but it was not successful. To contrary to prior belief, it wasn't a successful business because during that time she had inherited that business from her husband who had passed, and women weren't able to go out and just travel freely throughout the land without, in a safe manner at least, without safety or protection. And so these caravans would travel from Mecca to Syria, and along the way are Bedouins, along the way are attackers, along the way are people that attack the caravans, rob the caravan, or whatever have you. So you need strong men and protection to make that trip, and it's a long journey as well. So she would hire people to do it, but they would go and they would sell whatever goods, and they were supposed to get a percentage from Khadija. They would sell it. They would, siphon money from what they sold, and then they would go back to Khadija, give her the money, and then get the percentage of what they were owed by Khadija as well. On top of that, right? So it wasn't doing so well. And what stuck out to Khadija was the honesty of Prophet Muhammad when she partnered with him, and that honesty, and how her funds increased and how she was able to do better business and more business really struck a chord in her mind of his character, and how his character was professed by her cousin who went along the journey with him. And so that leads to family. That leads to him becoming married to Khadija, this beautiful and mother of the believers, right? The first mother of the believers, and they have a family life, and it's a span of around like 15 years or so that just the seerah of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, goes blank, because we don't know. He wasn't a prophet there then, right? And he was just living as a family man. He had a house full of children, a house full of young little girls, and a young boy that he adopted, Ali, from his uncle, his cousin. And he had Zayd, his freed servant, who he adopted as a son, who was like a teenager then, like around 19 or so. And he had Umayyah, Amon, Amon, his wet nurse. His wet nurse was staying with him as well. And so he had a packed house of just being a family man, being a provider. You have to be a good father. You have these little daughters running around, 2, 3, 7, 6 year old daughters. And for 15 years, he's just doing that and just stabilizing that. And so when he has that stabilized, now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him a message to bring to the community and get the community in order. And so he's working on that now. And when he's able to, unite the community, when he's able to unite the muhajirin with the ansar, the helpers and the immigrants with each other, and able to form a society based on moral foundation and principles, then they're able to spread that to Mecca, and then they're able to spread that to Yemen. Then they're able to spread it to northern, modern day Saudi Arabia, then northern Africa, right? It spreads, right? After the Prophet's death, the Umayyads go and they spread it throughout the land. And then you see Andalusia, the Moors spread it throughout Spain and almost southern France until they're stopped. But you see how society flourishes. They call the Andalusia the first industrial revolution, the first actual industrial revolution. They say that if they weren't impeded, if they weren't taken over, then the earth in general, the world in general, would be around 500 years more advanced than it is now. That's how advanced society was going for them. They had their own water systems. This is a place that had just total corrupt rule, where only kings and queens were being educated, and everybody else were peasants or whatever have you. The Jews were oppressed in that land. If you weren't Christian, and even many of the Christians were oppressed. And so the Muslims came in to rule, and they didn't just take over. They didn't just completely annihilate or wipe out no, they took over the highest of offices, and they left the Christians and the Jews to their own affairs, unimpeded. And what did that turn out to? It turned out to them converting eventually into Islam, right? Because truth is just allowed to flourish. It's nothing impeding it. It's nothing stopping it or blocking it, right? When the highest level are those who stand on a moral foundation of any kind. It wasn't all roses, but at least for like a standard, they had something to be held accountable to. And so you see books flourish. You see lights, even lights, just lights. They lit up the whole region, right, with lights. where it was mostly dark all the time. You see literacy rates just expand. You see universities created. You see libraries and sciences and even languages are revitalized that were once lost. Right? Scholarship prevails, and society flourishes. But then you have greed and those people who come in and want to take over, and now you see how ineffective that is in the long run, and how destabilizing it is to society. When African Americans are allowed to flourish unimpeded, you see Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Black Wall Streets, and the Black Wall Streets in Wilmington, and the Black Wall Streets in Brooklyn Village, or whatever have you. You see them flourish. But then, when somebody's in charge and impedes upon that flourishment, you see inequity come about. You see how that cripples society, how that cripples a people. Isn't that how our society operates right now today? What it's evolved into? Separate. Before segregation, weren't many African Americans together on one accord at least? After segregation, it's now this intentional effort to separate, right? It's now this intentional effort to demonize people, or to even just present them in a way on TV or in media of uncivilized, right? So much so that if you're not around people that look different from you, if you're not around African Americans, you can have these preconceived notions that keep you separated from reality, keep you separated from understanding or growing or learning from one another, right? So much so that you develop biases and racism within the heart, and it keeps you separated, right? Now you're focused on how much you hate each other rather than how much you equally hate the government that's oppressing you.
You know, that's what I see as something that's repeating in history is how Andalusia fell.
Hmm.
Islamic Spain, you had the Christians who were coming from above, coming down to take Spain back.
Hmm.
But the issue that they also had was in the south. They had groups of Muslims that were trying to come up and be combative with them as well. When they didn't get support from them, they got the opposite. And it was because the Muslims to the south, they didn't have an appreciation for that education and the flourishing of culture.
Hmm.
So it's interesting because you had the European influence that wanted to burn all the books in Spain, and then you had, dare I say, Islamic influence from the south that also wanted to burn the books as well, because somehow they felt that the advanced study in medicine and science
Hmm.
was not conducive to their Islam. So it's a strain. It's a strain from both ends
Yeah.
when you have an Islamic society that embraces education and culture, like
Yeah,
they did
yeah.
in Spain.
Well, you have the dissidents amongst the Muslims.
Hmm.
There's a power struggle,
Hmm.
and they got so much into that, joining up with other forces to
It's
overcome,
separated.
and to have the main power
They got weak.
the competitors, and so they shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
In the meantime, they were still coming down because they wanted to, they had their objectives and goals. So they used that divisiveness amongst the Muslims to lead into the imposition.
And they
That's happening
highlighted.
today because just last week
Yeah.
in Syria,
Hmm.
Aleppo just got taken over by rebels. Now, what if Syria had unity and could help with the rest of the world instead of fixing their own.
Yeah, no,
Got a
they.
problem right now.
And you got different fractions of rebels.
Yeah,
You
different
got
fractions of
Russian
you.
rebels, you got American
Mhm,
rebels,
mhm.
you got Turkish rebels,
Mhm.
and all of them, and then you got Assad, and so
Mhm.
it's a hodgepodge
Yeah.
of confusion.
The
Oh no,
news just
that's
say rebels.
Yeah, but
that is
they support those rebels.
yeah,
right.
yeah.
They
That's
won't tell you who. They won't tell you who, but we know who.
that's systemically intentional.
Mhm.
They saw the Ottoman Empire. They saw what was available, or what was the potential of that, and so it's a systemic intent of destabilizing the region.
Same thing happened in Somalia.
Yeah.
They destroyed Somalia,
Hmm.
the powers that be. And I don't know.
And it's also, you know, it's empire and it's also economics.
That's right.
Um, they saw in World War II what happened to the Germans, what happened to Hitler when he ran out of fuel. Said we don't want that to happen to us. They were those Nazis. They were winning the war. They were winning. Ran out of fuel, right? And that completely shifted what they were able to do for their tanks or whatever have you. With these major things that they had, these weapons that they had that they couldn't fuel. And so now there's this, you know, intent on controlling where we get our fuel from, how much fuel we have, and the access to that, right? And you even put people in place that have access to the fuel. You'll indoctrinate some people in that culture or in those high positions so that they speak for you, or you have those relationships with them that aren't you know, isolated or whatever have you, that you're not isolated away from. So you think of Saudi Arabia, right, and our relationship with them and how we're able to still have a relationship with Israel and right next to each other or whatever have you, Egypt and Syria, whatever have you, like coups, right, in order to destabilize governments. Some are just, all right, maybe we can just see what happens.
You got Chevron,
Yeah.
France. You got British Petroleum, England. You got, and don't forget, it's called Aramco, American Arab.
That's right.
Arab American oil company. And so, you know, it's economics.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's economics that you just on it related to economics.
Just like slavery was an economic system.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. It's the same principle.
Same principle.
History repeats itself.
Basis.
You gonna say something, Naeem?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we just gotta be mindful not to elevate day.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we put this day and elevate it beyond what it should be.
Mm-hmm.
There's no day in the Quran.
Yeah.
So it's whatever we needed, we had.
Yeah.
So if we would have stuck to what we got, what we had in Medina,
Mm-hmm.
that would have been the situation.
Yeah.
They said they left Muhammad,
Mhm.
meaning they left the Quran.
Yeah.
Because Muhammad was the Quran walker. So you can't have any sense, you know, doing what the enemy does.
Yeah.
That's to your detriment.
And that's the play that we have here in this country. That's what was kind of the main point of my Juma, or to get to, is that we don't have any loyalty to land. We don't have any loyalty to a flag or to anything, you know, any object or anything obscured. We have loyalty to a moral standard, loyalty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, taqwa in Allah. And that should push us to uniting with one another and coming for a common goal, right? We have the answers as Muslims, but we have to be able to work together. And so those that immigrate into the country have to be able to see this nation as their own, and those that have been in this nation have to be able to help those that come in understand that we've been through this before, that we've gone through this, we have the blueprint, that we have the history repeats itself. And if we can learn from what has happened in our history as African Americans, as Native Americans in this country, then we can be strategic about how we move forward in taking control, or taking back control of what it needs to be. Yes. Wa alaikum assalam.
When you say taking control, what do you mean?
That we are in control over our affairs, our laws, even the laws of society. We shouldn't be dependent on somebody making laws for us, or creating a standard of morality when we have the standard. And we see it today, how we can talk to our faces blue and they won't stop a genocide that's in 4K because economics, because the powers that be, we don't have that voice. So all throughout for decades, it's been this concerted effort to dismantle and to this blatantly just murdering Muslims throughout the world. No matter who's in office, no matter what party, right? It's all this consensus agreement that empires first, and then whatever happens in the country we focus on, or whatever have you. But outside with the aliens, it's free game, right? As long as they're not a part of these European nations or whatever. So it's this concerted effort, and if we aren't doing our due diligence in this country to be that leaders, to be in these high positions, then we're complacent, or complicit, and affirming in a way. So we have to put ourselves in these positions to give dawah, and to be able to inflict that morality, that moral standard that we have and that we stick to. I said in the khutbah that our interest as Muslims encompasses all of society's interests, right? Anything that Muslims stand for, that we want to implement and that's good for us, should be good for every single human being on the planet, no matter where they are, right?
And we have to have that. You see, the Muslims' concern is for all people,
Yeah.
justice for all. Now, we're a country that has that in our Constitution,
Hmm.
okay? Freedom and justice for all. But getting away from Muhammad, Muslims came here, we were suffering,
Hmm.
and nobody helped us. Allah helped us, but we didn't get that help from them, and they come down, and they still have a superiority complex against African Americans. I mean, it's real. It's real, and it's a disease that is spread, but they have adopted it, and so there's a dichotomy, there's a separation. You know, it's something you have to be educated about. You have to be educated about and informed about these biases, but that is a big impediment to coming together, because you talk about politics. We have people in politics, but persons will come here recently and they will disregard you because you're African American as far as your expertise. Like you say again, they had to study they had to study us. They had to study our experience, and they would get a great reward for their experience, and that would lead to more unity, and that would also lead to us working against the universal
Yes.
that we've been exposed to.
Yes, but it also takes an intentional effort for ourselves as well, because we understand the powers that be. We understand how somebody can come to this country and be indoctrinated with white supremacy, right? We understand how little children can, like 5-year-olds, can be indoctrinated with racist ideology, and they don't even know how to spell yet, right? We understand that this country is made up like that. It's made for people to think in those ways. We have to open people's eyes and do the dawah that we need to do to get on the same page with people coming in. And I think as people as second generation, third generations are born, it starts to begin this shift of understanding that, all right, this is what's needed. Or they may not understand the history, but they understand that white supremacy is rampant, right? And so they break away from that, and they're more open and inclined to understanding the history or knowing the history. We have to reach out and form those connections as well, right? It's one thing to stay confined because people don't align with you. It's another thing to reach out and make it so that they align with you because you know that you have this religious foundation that calls for it. You know that you have the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, that dealt with the same things. He dealt with racism in his amongst his companions, even in Medina. He dealt with sexism, right? He dealt with these things that separate us today, and he had the answers. And he did it in the most eloquent of ways. And all we have to do is just study those blueprints. Yes.
So, I appreciate, the points that are being made right now, because I feel like we've had this conversation before.
Hmm.
And I guess my question would be, who, who is responsible for doing the things that you're describing, right? Who's responsible for that?
Yeah.
Is it the imams? Is it, the leaders? You know, who's responsible? I feel like, you know, theory is always great, right?
Mhm.
And practice is a different situation, right?
Hmm.
And so I think everybody has different perspectives, so it's easy for everybody to voice their own perspective. And understand their own point of view, or their own, I guess, view on it. I'll say, like I told someone this morning, there was a sister, I was talking to you this morning about the school and what plans we're doing and what we're doing for next week. And I explained to her that the sister that came in, who recently enrolled her children in our school, she told me that, you know, she lives walking distance to a mosque. She didn't say which mosque, which I appreciate the fact that she didn't, because she's, again, we're all trying to be Muslim, right? That's our goal, to strive to be a Muslim, right? Only Allah knows. But she said that I can walk to a mosque from my home, but I enrolled my children here because I need them to feel comfortable. I can go and worship anywhere, meaning she has a perspective that she may be able to deal with people's racism or whatever it is that she's dealing with from other places, but that she has to protect her children. And in order to do that, she has chosen to put them in a place where they're comfortable and that they're going to be accepted. And that was very powerful, and I appreciated her for being honest, because I've talked to several people who go to different mosques, and when I mention or ask them about segregation or racism, I've heard good answers before. I've heard that that's their problem, not mine. You know, like if that's on their heart, that's not my problem. It's not my problem to fix. So I still enjoyed the education that I received at this mosque. So everybody's had great answers, but I guess my question again, my point is, you know, those are great, and I appreciate the point that you're making, but I guess, you know, where do you start? That's just like, you know, we're talking about, and racism is a global problem, not an American
Yeah.
problem.
Yes.
We just talked about it with the different companies. It's a global problem.
Hmm.
White supremacy has ruled the world for a very long time,
Mhm.
and so in different ways, right? Business, everything. And so how, you know, how do we get to this theory that you're talking about, or that you spoke of, since the prophet, you know, peace and blessing be upon him, is our model? You know, who should start with these changes that, whose responsibility is it?
I'd like to give a stab at that. Yeah, racism is big, right? And the racism is big. It's all over. It permeates society.
It's never gonna stop.
Well, yeah, it's like Satan is gonna always be there,
Right.
until the day the judgment. Okay, so, before I get into that, it says, and you heard this before, how does an ant eat elephant? One bite at a time. One bite at a time. So you just take your bite.
Right.
But look, we have a larger picture here, and it's in Belial. What did Belial do? He called people to prayer. What's prayer? Devotion to God, your duty as a human being. But he called them. But now, if we understand what it say, Al-Islam, you gotta understand the big picture in the role that we play. And don't take it short, because Islam, the light of Islam, said we're gonna rise in the West. Now, we gotta follow the dots. Yeah, I gotta make it 20, 30 more years, God willing, maybe a day more. But this is a movement. This is a movement. The job that you're doing in the school, you're taking a bite out of this. You say, and don't downgrade your bike, because it's what the bike you can take. We get in positions, we take maybe a bigger bike for the responsibilities we have. But that's appropriate. All the bikes are equal, but they might be the same size. But the thing about it's all going toward in the right direction. This is a human movement. This is a lost plan. Just look at our community. If you look at our community, it's no way possible. It's an immaculate conception. Never would they thought that this could come out of us, even through the avenues we came here. So it's working. It's working. We got our little token of time in this, within the parameters, but it's working. A lost man is gonna be the plan, and regardless, it's always been prophesied. A lot of, like I said, a lot of times we can't see ourselves because we don't understand ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can look at the bigger picture, this is the way it's gonna happen. A lost man will be the man where it comes from. Belial, and they said Belial gonna call the people to prayer. And then he said what? You follow that little kinky head person, you follow him, regardless, he is a leader. Allah put the proof in the situation. And Allah put the education in the situation. And I think, inshallah, we're gonna get there.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot more people gonna have to what? Come to this faith. It's a Muslim out there who gonna be a potential, who gonna live up to their potential. They might be Christians now, but they might be whatever. They might be atheists. But Allah is in the plan, has His plan, and I think I don't get dismayed about the amount of the size, because Goliath was killed by David. It says impossible. So we got a lot of inspiration from stories from the past that are applicable to the day.
Yeah, Assalamu
Like what's
That's an
that?
excellent question, and I look at our leader, Imam David D. Muhammad, one man, and look what he's done as one human being. And he didn't look at the small picture, he looked at the big picture, and he went in a systematic way of trying to resolve some of the issues that you just described. So much so that he started with us, helping us to see that we worship Allah and that we follow the example of Muhammad. Then with the interfaith he did in this country was amazing. I mean, it was amazing, the interfaith work that he did. And it's so much so that it reached overseas that he got acknowledged as the world leader of religions. Is that the right?
He was among one of the presidents in the world, leader of the world conference of religion.
Right. And so, and then he educated us. So much so that not just the imams, he educated a community. So most of us that study his language and understand that, we can go anywhere and teach if you feel that confidence. You should never feel like someone can just, we always strive to learn more, but you should feel confident in what Allah has blessed us with in this country to go somewhere and be an example. And I think we are in different fields, whatever field that you're in, that's why I tell the kids, wherever you go, you should be the leader. Don't let nobody make you feel, like you're incapable of leadership. And so everybody have a different niche. We in this community, what's so beautiful about Master Ash-Shaheed is that, we're so multi-talented, and we have to support each other and just try to lift each other up in the different areas. If somebody's a good cook, that's their area. If somebody's an educator, that's their area. Somebody's a janitor, somebody's a teacher, scholar, whatever that is. I think that if we support each other, then we're going to see some of the changes, that you described. It may not happen overnight, but it's systematic. Imam Khalil did a phenomenal job just by reaching out to the people here in Charlotte. After 911, who did they call? They called on this community. You see what I'm saying? Because they trusted in his leadership, and they knew that he was a man of dignity. And it's the same with many of us on our job sites. When people look at us, they see something different. So it may happen in little pockets and stuff like that, but it's taking place.
Even in places like where we live at,
Yes.
like one of Ibn's questions on our little quiz, he said, talk to them, we shouldn't change our language. You know, respect them as Christians and Jews or whoever they may be, but we promote our language also, you know, like when I be talking to them and they say something, I say, yeah, inshallah. And so they never asked me yet what that mean, but they say, they know Sister Jenna always saying, inshallah, what does that mean?
They
They
probably go
always
home
say,
and Google it.
inshallah. Well, I think she talking about God, you know, but what, you know, and alhamdulillah, you know, what, we got to do that. And that
Yeah.
will bring them closer to wanting to know, you know, about this way, you know, and what you're saying and everything.
Yeah, I think we should
To-
talk more about what we do on our jobs. We probably, a lot of us get a lot of attention, a lot of accolades. I'll give you an example. I got the highest award for Atrium Health, the Pinnacle Award. I was
SubhanAllah.
Yeah, Lord bless me
SubhanAllah.
with more awards on that job than the whole staff combined.
SubhanAllah.
That's Islam. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of examples in our community, you know, that's like that. And so we're making a difference, you know, so.
Yeah.
Baby steps. And then like, you know, then you get a little better each generation, you know, like we have to like, the new shahadas that's coming in, brothers and sisters, you know, we have to let them know and give them the right guidance, you know. And if we don't know, like, again says about one of the students of thought, I think it was Shafi or Mali, somebody asked him about something he didn't know. I don't know, you know, but I'll find out for you, you know.
So yeah, to answer your question, I think it first starts with the individual. It first starts with us, right? Our individual selves. We know what our standards of morality are in Islam, and so it's up to you to call out the person that's not upholding that standard, right? So what I do is I put myself in uncomfortable positions. And if something needs to be called out or somebody's not doing or whatever have you, normally you'll find that they're great people in every community, right? They're great people all around. Like you're going to attract them if you're doing what you're supposed to do or whatever. And you can attract negativity if you come in with that. But I hold them to a standard that I hold myself to. They come to Ash-Shaheed and they receive hospitality and things like that. If they're not doing that in another masjid, then we hold them to that standard. Like, hey, y'all need to be doing this because this is what the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, taught or whatever have you. This is like, and this is what we do or whatever. So like, it's sharing that information, is putting yourself in those uncomfortable positions so that you can unite. That's what I do, and it's worked out. SubhanAllah is I can see things coming into fruition. I can see how now massages are reaching out, trying to coordinate. If you put yourself in these positions, if I invite you to Bodicka Bro stuff, you probably would never met a lot of people, right? Or even known that they exist, right? Or even had certain conversations that you might never had a conversation like that in your life. We were having kind of a Friendsgiving the other day in the masjid, and some brothers that were playing football at an MCC event came here, to break bread and whatever have you, with the brothers from Ash-Shaheed, and like we were having a conversation with a brother from Berlin in Africa, right next to Togo and all, and he was telling us about his culture and things that we don't normally hear about in that culture, and things that, like, you have these conversations, you open yourself up just by being around different people and being intentional when you're around them to do dawah in a sense, to express your knowledge. We have this knowledge. You can't keep it to ourselves. A lot of my brothers and sisters, they don't know anything about Muslim African American struggles and things, and so I educate them. I make an intention about, hey, you see this happening? We went through this before. Or this is history repeating itself. This is what happened this time. This is what happened that. And then they start to grow in their knowledge. They start to grow in their attraction and their understanding of how we need to come as one unified force. And that's continuously happening. Even the masajids around Charlotte area are recognizing that now. Their brother Assad, he invited me to a talk at ISGC just in an event where he invited all the imams from different masjids to talk, and he wants to continuously do that. And his point of view was, you know, we argue like about a moon, and it's one day out the year. Even if we were to argue about this moon or whatever and sighting or whatever, we still have 3 days of Eid where at least one of those days we can be aligned. And then not only that, we have another 362 days out the year or 61 days out the year, whatever have you, to work together and to do something, right? So it's this want and this understanding and this need for unity is out there. We just have to get out of our silos, out of our bubbles, out of our comfort zones, and push it forward, because that's all that's going to happen. And if we look at this example of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, that's what happened when Muhajirin came. They were forced to be with the Ansar, who they didn't know, but they were roommated together based off or whatever have you, and they just became friends with one another over a span of time. They became knowledgeable about one another. When we talk about Bilal, many of the companions had, how the Idan started was with a companion. He had a specific dream. He wasn't African. He was an Arab. Had a specific dream from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in which he heard the Adhan called, and it was said that we want to know something better, which you could say, because they were thinking of contemplating on how the prayer should be called. And so he had this dream, and somebody told him, and this revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, somebody told him in his dream, do you want to know something better? And he gave him what we know as the Adhan, and then he went straight to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, with it, and told him, hey, this is what I heard in a dream. And it so happens that he was just the first person to go. Other companions had these dreams as well, and they later on revealed that when they heard the call of prayer from Bilal. But the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, didn't choose him to call the prayer. He he chose Bilal to call the prayer, and he told Bilal to get up, call the prayer, and the companion that knew what to say was telling Bilal what to say as he's calling it, right? So this unified effort, right, of community, right, that's going to get us together, that's going to unify us and bring us to that promised land of sorts, right?
Excellent answer.
But sister said,
He
he,
answered my question. He answered my question.
I'm getting back, I'm thinking of examples.
Yes, sir.
Remember when the Muslims, we talking about living Islam. Now, Muslims had come to Indonesia in that area. They were business people. They were trading. Now, let's think about this. That whole country is so-called, it's a Muslim country. Yeah. But it didn't have
Largest.
But it started, the spark started just one businessman. You ever think they would think that, did they come there with that idea? Like I say, so I'm saying, what we're doing here is not, is as expanded, as extended, is a big thing, but it seems like it's too big, but it's not too big, but that's how things grow from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. So we got a lot of examples to look at. Let's look at in that relationship.
Wa alaikum assalam.
This is, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I have just one thing I would like to add. As we observe the different situations that are occurring, I remember once upon a time, and I guess pretty much it's still happening, is where when things get to a point where we feel like, or we need to be able to support our community and ourselves and our families, as well as, our community, which is our families are part of the community. But I'm thinking that we need to have a plan as to what we're going to do if we can't afford to buy food. We can combine our resources and maybe do community buying or whatever and share. But we need to have a better plan, and we need to continue on with the building of our.
Are you saying in Charlotte?
Yeah. Yes. That's what I'm talking
I
about.
think it would come from knowing this is to the point is unity amongst the masajids and knowing what each other has going on and what they have available. Because MEC, they have a food pantry and they do it like every Saturday or so or whatever, every week. They have this food pantry where they give food out to anybody that's in need or whatever have you. And so it's just about communicating with one another and coordinating, using each other's resources. We all have some specialty that we're good at. If we can combine that, and even and on a and it starts on a molecular level. Hopefully, it gets to a larger level where, all right, if there's this polarizing issue or policy that's put forth in government or that's in our society, we can come together as a community of Muslims in Charlotte and say, all right, how do we feel about this issue? What does Islam say about this issue, and how should we go forward and be unified in that effort to speaking out against it? It's much different than this one masjid over here. I know it, and that's all the only masjid anybody knows in Charlotte. They don't even think any other Muslims are in Charlotte, or they're surprised that there are other. Right? We should have a collective voice in matters that affect us collectively.
Right. And also, we need to continue with the building of our senior citizen home, our schools. We need to make that, visible.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah,
follow what I'm saying? We need to continue with that
yeah,
because
yeah,
that's something that's really needed, even more so now than
yeah,
before.
yeah.
So that kind of project that Imam Khalil and others had initiated, we
Yeah.
need to make sure that continues.
And
We
make
need
sure
to.
that you come to the December 8th meeting where we'll be talking about some of those things going forward, that future
Right.
in
Right. Okay.
person. And I
Right.
think, people underestimate the power or the means at hand that we have to fundraise and establish some of these things that are needs for the community, right? If we
Right.
can put something forth like I was thinking like the senior living or whatever. There's no what Muslim senior living places in America. Know how many Muslims would align with that, no matter where they're from. I was in a community up in Virginia, and they were fundraising for expansion of the masjid. And you would never think that they'd be able to fundraise or do anything because it's a college town, and so people move out the city or move out the town every 4 years, and there's no real stability, but they're intentional about how they bring people in and create them as leaders or whatever have you and put them back into their communities as they graduate or as they go out they're teaching jobs somewhere else or whatever have you, and people remember that. It's called ISNRV, Islamic Society of the New River Valley. It's in Blacksburg. It's the only masjid there, around like 50-mile radius or so. And they're raising money, and then some, just based off connections and based off the fact that you're, raising money for something that's good. Some person in New York that's never been in the area, never been to the masjid, don't know anything about the community, but knows what they're doing, gives $100,000. Right? Yeah.
I'll let you finish your point, then I'll jump in.
So it's utilizing us as a collective, a whole. If we're doing something feasibility, everybody should be aligned with that. Yeah, and we don't. Yeah, yes. And so subhanallah, we need to have a big vision and dreams, and we can accomplish those with the right unity.
Yes, I just think that we do need to keep silos in some areas.
I mean, you have your cultures, you have your specifics, you have, your uniqueness about your communities and your history that you cultivate and that you cherish and that you keep intact. That's been around for forever. That doesn't mean that you isolate yourself. That means that you have something that you're so confident of, that you're so aware of, that you want to share it with the
Let
world.
me give you an example. So, I come from like the Philadelphia area,
Hmm.
and a lot of the Muslims there, African American, have
It's
accepted
different,
the
yeah.
understanding of Islam and stagnant.
Yeah, yeah,
So in that case, it would have been better to keep the silo of your American identity, your Muslim identity, and just growing.
Mhm.
They got, I had a niece who came to Islam, who had a bachelor's degree in nursing, she joins the Salaf community, all of a sudden, her life falls apart. So to me, I think that silos, and even here in Charlotte, what we've been doing here since we've been here, we have been operating as somewhat of a silo. The silo has been building community life, establishing education for all of our young people, empowering our sisters. So that is the world we're gonna go in and continue to grow and invite others to join. We're not gonna pick up the habits of Muslims who are bringing traditional things that haven't worked. So I think there is a time and place for a silo when you're protecting what you have. And it's important to stick to what you're doing and not get tied up with the debate that's happening around the world. So like if you look online, you got Muslims debating stuff that they've been debating for 1,000 years. You know, Akida and faith, that's not our world. Our world is educating people, empowering people, and helping their neighbors.
Yeah, I think that comes
That's
with.
why, that's why we should have had our schools up and running yesterday. That is a
Well,
key point. We need to pull our kids out of this school system that's crippling their thinking, and we need to start our own.
well, I
Sorry.
don't know if we have enough children to do that. Unfortunately,
We don't have enough children
yeah, I don't think we have enough.
in our
Yeah,
community per se to do that. That's not to say that
But
children,
other kids will
yeah, it
come
wouldn't
from
be our children.
other faith traditions will
Yeah,
come.
yeah,
but you know,
They will come.
the thing is you have to have a funding system where you can pay teachers as well. And so it's a lot to it.
yeah, yeah.
It's a lot to it than just building a school. You gotta be very, pragmatic.
You know,
And you have to be intentional about how there are different parts to it that you have to put together in order to make a school work.
there's an Islamic school right down there's an Islamic school right down the street from us. You know, do we connect with them? Do we establish some type of rapport with them? Do we in what's it called? Give them teachers to teach, or do we say, hey, we need an African American studies program here, or whatever have you? Right down the street on No Tryon, Islamic Academy. And the principal was my teacher when I went to Islamic school, my PE teacher, Brother Ba. Yeah, mashallah, beautiful brother.
I mean, but we have a school. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
But that's not what she's
I mean,
talking
Yeah, she's
I
talking,
know,
yeah.
but what I'm saying is we do have a school. We've been having a school.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know what kind of school she's talking about, but what I'm saying is, well, there are other things that we can do. We can start an after-school program,
Yeah,
you know?
we can teach the history of this country. We can do a lot of things.
And I think we do excellent. I mean,
Yeah,
we've
yeah.
had an excellent weekend school for 20 years. And if that's where we are, if we're providing excellence in that, that's all we can do. I don't think we have to have a K through 12.
I'm not comfortable with my child being taught in the school system as it is today. Now, if you're okay with that, I understand. But I'm not comfortable with the things that they want to teach in school today, in the public schools today, and the way they want to treat our children. If you're comfortable with that, I'm not comfortable with that.
She's right.
It's not a comfort. It's not the comfort, but how many Muslims do you see on the school board affecting these things? How many Muslims do you see dealing with budgeting of school systems? How many Muslims do you see, as principals or whatever have you? In these, we have a responsibility to change from within. We have a responsibility to not be dependent on anybody teaching our children this or that as well, and to teach them as well. And that's where parenting comes in. That's where the community comes in. That's where Sunday school comes in to kind of combat some of those things. But we also have classes throughout the week, right, where we can send in. So it's indoctrinating yourself. When I was little, I went to public school, but I was here all the time. I was amongst the Muslims all the time. I was amongst the community all the time, right? They bring you back to reality many times. Yeah.
Reference to what all been covered this afternoon. My point is, like you said earlier, we were talking about some fundraising or donations, and there was some person who was not Muslim, I guess, or Christian or what have you, but they heard they heard about a plan of whatever it was going forward, and they donated something like Who said that?
I think
Somebody
you said
brought
Oh,
it
that's
up
me.
there.
It's for brother
Okay,
Yeah.
and
Daniel.
if that is true,
Mm-hmm.
it's like when things are presented to us, whether it be on Facebook, on, wherever it is that you're getting it from the social medias, people are touched by what they hear, and that's something that's being done.
Mm-hmm.
You ask them to donate, and they're gonna donate money. And I think a lot of times, when we're talking about, okay, well, we gotta pay the teachers, and of course, they have to have some kind of we have to have some kind of a payment plan. But I think if we get the word out and start talking and sharing what we're doing to other people, and they know what we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna get the support. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't think you can always think, it's not gonna always be from Muslims.
Yeah.
We hope that it will be, but it doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people are putting that money up, they're not putting the money there to control what you're doing. They're putting the money there to support what you're doing. And I think that we have to look at other ways of building money. And I think it has to be something that is revenue generated.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a school, you have children attending that school, and it may not be a lot of children in the beginning, but I think it's gonna grow. Because the lady that Sister Aisha was speaking about, that lady loved her children and she wanted to protect what their hearts, have experienced. So she doesn't want them to be somewhere where people are going to make them feel lesser than. Because I felt that when I first came to Charlotte and chose to go to a masjid that I really felt I didn't feel a part of. And so I was looking for something what I could call home. And I found that at Masjid Ash-Shaheed. But I didn't find that in every, just because they carry the name Muslim
Mm-hmm.
and Muslim community, I felt
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. No, I think we've all been in that situation.
And I
Yeah.
think that what we should do is, it's possibly somehow with some kind of a connection or speak to these people, these massages that have that type of behavior
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
community.
Yeah. No.
Because
No.
no
Yeah.
child should have to experience it. I shouldn't have to experience it.
Yeah.
And then that left me and was looking for a place to call home.
Yeah. I
Because,
I don't
and
know.
I didn't know who to reach out to complain to. Because
No
if
one.
you, if you even dared to ask to talk to someone, they was gonna send you to some, imam that was gonna make you wait for who knows how long before you can talk to them, that did absolutely nothing. But anyway, I
Yeah.
think that
Let me
there's
give an
other ways that
example.
we can look
Yeah.
at the senior, housing. That's revenue generated, that's something that's gonna happen every month you have money coming in, that's what we need. We need a way to bring in money every single month.
Our summer camp was a good example of what
Mhm.
we're talking about, because the community, the teachers, the parents came together,
Yeah.
and we made it work. You
Mhm.
see what I mean? People realize that we're under budget, however, we made it affordable for people to come, and they
Yeah.
loved it. They loved the system. Then they got introduced to the community that way.
Mhm.
And there's money available through charter schools and through other ways that we can get money. But I know once people come in this atmosphere and they see how we treat each other, and they see how we respect their kids, and they see the results of their kids
Yeah.
learning, they become more attracted to Masjid Al-Shaheed.
Those turn into donations, even if they don't
Right.
come and become a member. Like those turn into donations and things. Like
That's right.
yeah, people appreciate that in one way or another.
And statistically, by the time our young people in public school get to fourth grade, they lose their curiosity. You can see it. And I don't know what's going on in public schools, but our children are not, the majority of our children are not getting what they deserve. So it's up to us
Yeah.
to give them what they deserve, not leave it to somebody else. Not
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
they can go to public school. We need to figure out a way.
And the social media is a problem with our kids too. They have to deprogram them from their cell phones, because Shaitan is attacking the kids through social media.
Yeah.
And there's a major problem. Like, we have have to address. So when they come here on Sunday and they're excited to be here, it's because of what you're giving them, the teachers and the food and, you know, just the experience they have is great. And we just need to continue on in that vein.
Yeah, I can attack it head on. Um, it's no use of beating around the bush. We don't live in that type of society anymore. If you do, they'll just find some way around it. We have to attack issues head
I
on.
take those teenagers that's here, and like when the days they not in school, I take them and I give them little jobs to go in people's and, you know, sweep up the leaves and all that, and put money in their pocket. You know what I mean? You know, you have to do something to engage them. The fact that they get out there and play basketball and they have a good time, the fireside chats that they've been to do, and things of that nature, all of those activities, I used to take them to different events. All of those things, you know, make us who we are. It may not be formal school, but it's a good education that our kids are getting here, inshallah.
So,
New connections,
Yes.
you know, the work that Sister Aisha does with the kids, you know, taking them on these events and that kind of stuff, you know, I mean.
Can't downplay it.
Yeah, I mean, it plays a tremendous role, you know, just like when we had the sleepover, right? The sleepover in these, it's probably coming up. But hey, hey, I don't know, but I'm just saying, in the past, you know, we're here all night long with the kids and doing these programs with them, right?
I get what everybody's saying, you all are correct.
Yeah.
I think what Sister Uhuru is talking about is, and I'm presuming, she means the state of education for little black boys and girls around the world, around the country. That's what she's talking about, right? She's not talking about the Muslims here, right? Because we don't have any children. But she's talking about in general, and the public school systems have been failing our children.
Yeah, absolutely.
We know this, and
Yeah.
it's good when you can have a place like Nasib mentioned to bring them, you know, around, like you all have mentioned what we offer. But, you know, is that something that we should do? I don't know, but you know, if the community's ready and willing, I'm down, you know, but I mean, you know, it's a tall task, because we understand, like, you know, the sister, Varsity, her husband, Umar, you know, they have been trying for years, you know, to get their public school, you know, their charter school, and they have established. My son is a tutor, at the school in Greensboro right now. But again, it's not an easy feat. Our children are in horrible shape. I think my son came home and talked about how the children that he tutors in third grade, you know, can't read. And that's not just there, where our families, and when I say ours, but our African American community at whole, at large, are frustrated. They have not done what they're supposed to do, and then they finally say, oh, this is supposed to be the savior here. You got these Muslims, these black Muslims opening up a charter school, I'm gonna send my kids. But the reality is, right now, the children, statistically, since COVID, and they'll tell you.
Parents too.
Our children are not.
Aisha, I had the kids, after they went on a field trip, I asked the boys to write a short letter about their trip. When I read some of the stuff, I was horrified.
Which one?
You know, just the grammar, the trip.
Oh, you know, they're yes, sir. Especially with the grade and the age they are. Yes, sir. That's the truth. And he'll tell you the same thing with the children that, you know, I think the boy he had last year, you remember, I was saying.
Yeah.
You know, but
You know,
this is reality.
there's
They don't do that.
No.
See, they don't even
Don't get homework no more.
there's a
A lot of them are not.
They get passed along.
They get passed
They're
along.
not
And
they're not proficient in any way,
And
even
so-
as young.
So what we do in Strong in School, you know, for my class, I have them to read, because I wanna see where they are. And then what I try to do, I say, okay, I'm gonna bump it up a little bit. I ain't gonna make it too hard for you, but I wanna be able to see where you are. And then this one kid who wasn't there, now he's there. Now, I'm not taking full credit for it. I'm just saying there are other people who have been teaching this kid how to read. And now I see from last year to this year that he's made progress. Alhamdulillah.
Father, his parents see what he
Yeah,
has come home with and he's doing,
Yeah.
and now they're encouraged to help him and keep him going.
this reminds
That's
me.
where our passion is coming from. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is that we are in bad shape.
No, this reminds me. Yeah, it reminds me of something I just came to the knowledge of that the Turkish community does here in Charlotte, or one of the Turkish community, the Divine Center. If any of you heard of it, but they have a sheikh. I don't know if he's a sheikh. He's a leader for them. It's kind of like Imam W.D. Muhammad for them in Turkey, who his whole premise is like establishing schools throughout the world, and these are like it's not your everyday. Well, some of them are high schools and things like prestigious schools, but what they do here in Charlotte is they get a house and they get children from wherever, from either they come in from work from overseas or they come in that they already live in the country, and it's about like a house full of like 5 or 8 from middle school to to college.
Turkish, right?
Turkish. Well, they're not all Turkish. Like they don't have to be Turkish. They can be anybody. I think most of them, maybe like 3 or 4, maybe Turkish, but then the others are just like other ethnicities. And so they have this house, and they all live there as like roommates. And they're all Muslim, and they have like one person that's their senior in college or so and getting their degree to mentor them. And so they created this micro community, kind of similar like to like a college setting where you have your little micro community where the high schoolers and middle schoolers, like everybody's on a strict schedule for education. They're helping you with your homework. Your mentors help you with your home, making sure all your homework is done, making sure that Islam is the foundation of your being. Like we're praying all our prayers together. They make tahajjud in the early morning, the prayer after you wake up from sleep before fajr or anytime throughout the night prayer they make, if they can. They go to school, they come home, they get help with their homework, they get help with tutoring, then they have time to study whatever it is that they're interested in, whatever it is that they piques their interest, some just something different, and then they have time to play or not play, but they're not little kids, socialize or whatever, because he was saying that they don't want it to be this strict environments where they go off to college anywhere they're any. He used the word like very well.
They wanna explore.
Yeah, they want, but he said like they don't go out to college and they're hungry. Like I love that word. I don't even think like they're hungry, and he don't even speak that great of English, but he's able to use that word like that. Is subhanallah. It's like they're hungry, like they're hungry. They want a taste of something, and they're tasting. No, he wants it to be like, all right, this is how we, as Muslims, operate, and we have fun in a halal way, just like Aisha does, and taking the children to Top Golf and all of these the movies and the beach and stuff like that. Like they want to have fun in a halal way and know what that looks like before they go out into the world somewhere else. And like their students are like top of their class. Like one of their students here in Charlotte,
School, right?
they go to public school. One of the students here in Charlotte, but they come home to a Muslim environment, right? And people holding them accountable, people, making sure that they're on their deen or they have that support and foundation. They're not just going home to whatever and now they're by themselves and the games or the streaming or whatever have you. Like
Working parents,
you got people around you that are going to encourage you or keep you, on the Surat al-Mustaqim, right? And it's this beautiful model. One of their students is like finalist for like the Pulitzer Award, and that's like the highest achievement you can get in the country for a high schooler, right? And their grades, the grade point out, like they keep it up. They're like 4.0s, like grade points, and get like scholarships and stuff. But it's not because they're just these special people or whatever. It's because they're intentional about that support system, and the Turkish community, they just support it. They pick up extra jobs for it. They they Uber, they whatever they can do, they donate to supporting that, making sure that house is good and they have what they need. Feasibility. That's it. Just because they know that it's the right thing to do.
So some of the boys, their parents might be like in Charlotte too?
Ye-
Put them in the house?
yes.
Well,
Yes.
Sister Uhuru, I want you to know that there are black educators all over the nation taking their bite in various capacities, whether it's in legislation, whether it's in after-school programs, whether it's in public schools. There are people all over the country trying to help our children, and they are making small and tremendous contributions. But in terms of us being the place, only Allah knows.
The point of that was just to say that we can learn from different people's success stories and implement it right with our own in our own way with our own foundations.
That's what the Muslims in history have always done.
Yeah.
Something that's good,
They take it.
They keep it and hold on to it so much you think it's something that came from the Muslims.
There's some teachers, yeah. There's some teachers up in the north, African American teachers in Philadelphia and New Jersey that they put certain things, like one of the teachers, they put washing machines in the school. And that increased, yeah, just simple as putting the washing machines in the school. There's a black teacher, he is a principal, he put washing machines in the school and it increased their attendance by like 90% or whatever.
Now turning that clean clothes away.
Yeah, people are doing things. Is we have to be unified and we have to communicate and take the best out of what everybody is doing. And so we can do that here locally with and different masajid, whatever people, and we can do it nationally and globally, right? But we have to be intentional about that. We have to want it fi sabilillah, because of our taqwa of Allah and because it's good, right? And alhamdulillah, may Allah make it easy for us. Yeah, I mean.
Just also, like you said, take the one with questions. We don't reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
We're already there, we just take our part and
They actually that community they asked to come to Masjid Ash-Shaheed and learn from us. They actually I'm supposed to be setting that up, so I'm dropping the ball with that. But they're very intentional about how they connect with their Muslims throughout the community. So inshallah, what time is Asr?
3:30.
3:30.
It comes in earlier, but inshallah we pray.
Okay. So we'll break here. Jazakumullahu khair for everybody and your comments and everything. We'll close out with Al-Fatiha. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.